Infidelity is a popular hidden flaw among relationships, and relationships in the church are no exception. Some church couples have decided to use unorthodox methods of exploring their sexual desires. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. The people in the church who are swingers and saints.
Thank you for joining us here at the Big E, the elephant in the room. My name is Jackie.
And I am Melissa.
And we're here to talk about swingers and saints today. Today we have a special guest.
Hi, my name is Alicia. I am a Christian. I currently live in the UAE and I'm in the education field.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, I love the UAE. And we are here in the US. We have a lot of situations where there are swingers in the church and outside. Would you mind telling us what got you introduced to being a swinger? And tell us what it is first.
Well, I am not a swinger. Let me just clarify that. I'm not a swinger, but I have experienced people, I've dated people who have had experience being a swinger. So that is something that I was shocked about, and I also was interested in and learned a bit more information about it. So basically a swinger is a couple, usually couples, who engage in sexual activity with other couples or other individuals.
Absolutely. And how did you find yourself into that situation?
Like I said, I was dating, I dated two people in particular, one person from the church that just shared with me his experience with at being a swinger at some point. And of course, I didn't engage in swinging personally, but you know, that's the point. The point is that there are so many people in the church who are engaged in these activities, and you just never know. You find yourself involved because you're just in the church and you're interacting with people you're dating in the church, and you come to find out these people are involved in such things.
So I just have a just clarification on this whole process of swinging. Because it's such, we're involved in the church and we're all raised collectively in a Christian home and a Christian background. My thing is, this individual that you were involved in that was actually a swinger, how did they say, in their perspective, how did they decide to move forward and think that was a comfortable place with them, especially being in the church realm and environment?
From my understanding, I think this person also was raised in the church. Both parents were very active members in the church, and they found themselves in that position because someone else in the church mentioned it to this particular person, and they tried it out actually with someone else they weren't really in a relationship with, but in order to go to these, okay, so there are events, right? So in order to get into this event, they have to come with a partner. Like a single man can't just go, a single woman cannot just go. It has to be a couple. So they were introduced to someone who then introduced them to someone so that they can go to this event. And I think initially they were just interested and said, I'm going to go, because of course there's no pressure to do any particular activities, but they did know what was going to be happening, but they just wanted to go see. And then I think that kind of opened the door for them to then later on participate.
Okay. So once they you found out this individual was actually a swinger, did your relationship continue, or did you basically at this point realize this is not the direction you actually want to go into? And did they give you basically an ultimatum actually in the relationship, since they were a swinger and you were not one?
They were not currently swinging as far as I knew. They made it seem like for them it was just one of those oh, that was my phase, that was my exploratory phase. And it was something I tried, something I was engaged in for a period of time, and I'm no longer engaged in it. So no, there was no need for that. However, I will say that, when we're dating people, people's histories are important. We can't hold them to the cross, right? Because we all grow, we all receive grace. But you have to think, especially when it comes to sexuality, if a person has experienced certain things, how satisfied are they going to be with just the base, right? They've experienced this, and obviously there was something in them that was made them interested in it. So then you wonder, a couple of years in, when it's like you've seen and explored everything, what's the next step? So that did go across my mind.
Alicia, that's an excellent point. Melissa, those are excellent questions to ask our guests today. It also reminds me, I had an interview, and he chose not to be here today for obvious reasons, but he did allow me to share a little brief statement. I'm going to just summarize what he stated. For he and his wife, it was a situation where they started going to couples counseling at church. And just as you mentioned, a lot of the events you had to be married. It was, you couldn't date, you had to actually officially be married. So what would happen, the whole point of them going to couples counseling is to try to solve the problems that they were having in their relationship. But what they found is when they started to go to these retreats and these gatherings, there was a whole nother situation going on that I don't think too many of the pastors and elders knew what was going on. So it was actually something that it was exciting and it was secretive. So it began to, blossom into a situation where they started sharing and swapping partners within the same church. But for him, it wasn't something that he wanted to continue. It was something that he wanted to try because he really was trying to help his marriage and please his wife. But for him, it just wasn't something that he wanted to continue to do. So it was a very sad consequence for him. It did result in divorce. And she ended up marrying one of the other gentlemen in the church that she was swinging with. So it was, and I was going to ask you, what was the consequence of being affiliated with someone who chose that type of lifestyle?
I didn't really experience any consequence directly to that, other than just getting a new perspective on what's really out there, because I didn't expect that, certain persons within the church would be engaged in those activities. Of course, I've heard of swinging. We know Will and Jada have been accused of swinging all these years, right? But I just didn't know to that extent that it was in the church. So that was an eye-opener for me. But as far as our relationship, it didn't really affect it much.
So I have just a perspective on, Jackie, what you were saying, as well as Alicia. So when you have a husband and a wife that, when you're dating, you do new things, you're excited, you're just whelmed in so much of the relationship. You move forward, you get married, you're still doing these exciting and new adventurous things. At your point, Jackie, you were saying this was a secret situation that was going on at these various retreats and marriage retreats. So what if it comes to a point that a spouse says, you know what, in God's eyes, I know this is not the right thing to do, but their spouse is still enjoying this environment, still enjoying the activity, enjoying what's going on, but then that spouse is like, that's not what I want to do. Where does it come to a point that that individual has to make a choice? Do they continue on with their marriage? Do they openly, is there anything readily available in the church to someone that you can speak to without being judged, without being looked down upon? That has always been a point that I've always sat there. Now, since this is coming to light and we're bringing this to the table here, why isn't these issues and why is this such a secret in our church? Now, the thing about it, we see this, we hear about it out in the streets, we hear it every day going on our everyday lifestyles, we see things on movies. But why isn't this fully addressed? Because you have leadership, you have people that individuals look up to, and circumstances like this are happening. But why isn't this fully addressed in our churches? And how do spouses overcome circumstances like this without being ridiculed or teared down upon?
That's a good point. Alicia, you have any feedback from that?
You know, I think that a lot of times in the church, I think number one, people don't feel comfortable because they know it's not right, right? I don't think that there's any Christian who would justify that behavior. I don't know of the arguments of it's in the Bible, right? They may be able to make justifications to themselves, but when they have to verbally share it with someone else, I don't think that they feel that confident in doing it, right? So that's number one. Number two, I think that the church, either way though, even when we do things we knowingly or unknowingly do, that's wrong, we should feel that the church is a place that we can go and get counsel for anything, no matter how far we've gone. And I don't think that a lot of times the church is really that place, because what we like to do is we like to pretend that we have not been there, that we don't know this. And that needs to stop. We need to make the church a comfortable place and where people are sharing these things, because if we don't share them, if the church is not a place where we can come to heal and to be open, where else are we going to go? That's how we get into these situations in the first place, because we're going to people who are not wise, right? They're not making the best decisions. They have a different set of values, right? I think that it's interesting though. I do know that there are some churches that are kind of providing that. I'm from New York originally, and I do know of one church in particular, at least, that has a group for men who have sex addictions. And I was surprised to find out about it, but I was happy because they need a place, they need an outlet. And I know this particular church also has had very, what we would consider provocative conversations and platforms where they are discussing these topics that most other churches won't even dare to address.
So how do we move forward? Where does leadership in the church come to say, okay, well, there needs to be a platform for us to be able to, of course, professionally, but be able to finally talk about it? Because believe it or not, if the parents are out there doing this and the kids are watching, they're going to think this is okay because mommy and daddy are doing it. So then you're looking at your kids wondering why your kids are behaving in a certain manner. So there has to be a point, where do we stop? Where do we cut it off that we can finally say, let's sit down and let's talk about it?
I've actually heard a situation, to piggyback off of what you were saying, Melissa, and it was a good point, Miss Alicia, what she was saying. There is a church that I know of at one point, this is a long time ago, here in the South, where it was known that things like that were going on, but the church was popular because it was going on. So what happened is they would get a lot of visitors and sometimes even increase membership because that church was very open to that type of behavior. So what do you do with that?
I wanted, you know, my first thought was burn the church, but that's not the answer. Don't listen to me. That's not the answer. That's not the answer. But I think that clearly they need to revisit their mission statement and the Bible, and no all-night prayer meetings there, but they need to pray and fast, okay? But I think that what, you know, and Melissa, this is important, right? Because there has to be a serious change. It has to be a change that is not just church by church by church, right? This underlying ideology of what is church, what is the purpose of church, what is the place of church, and who are the people that are coming to church, right? And I think we've got that all mixed up. And until we can really come to grips and go to the Bible for that answer, these things are going to continue to destroy the church. As you can see, as Jackie said, that church is destroyed. I mean, it might be vibrant, but it's not serving in its capacity of what God intended it to be, right? And so you have to realize that the church is, it's a hospital. It's a place of prayer, right? It's a place where people are coming to, and we are sinful. We are flawed. And for us to act as though, when we try to hide the sin and we try to put on the mask, we try to act like we're not flawed, we're not sinful, that gives the opportunity for sin to then grow and then spread. When we address it, just like with any other sickness, if we're sick and we just ignore it, it doesn't go away. You have to treat it. You have to acknowledge it. You have to be diagnosed. And so a lot of times we just want to look good. We want to look pretty. We want to have the numbers. We want to have the offering. We want to have the music. We want to have all of the glitz and glamour without having a solid foundation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And Jesus, we know he was a man of the people and any kind of person. And he was leading them to God and directing them to God. And if that's not happening, you're reaching any kind of people, they can come as they are, then like, what's the point? You can't really call yourself Christians. You can't call it a Christ-centered church because it's just not.
However, I do find that when things are confessed and when you share with church members at the hospital, there's not that much support because there's a lot of judgmenting. There's a lot of judgmental things going on. And so it doesn't really give an open space for people to feel comfortable to really come with their real sins. Thus, that just produces a lot of areas and situations where people do keep things hidden and in secret.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. It is. And I think that, well, what do you guys think about? I have different views about what I think, how things should go in the church. Okay. I think that the church misses the mark when we don't look at it like a business. And people may say, it's what, a business? A church is a business. But what I mean is that, you know, businesses have strong mission statements. They have people in place that have specific roles, and they are held accountable to achieve goals according to their position, right? And you're getting a return on investment, and you have a strong HR department, right? And so I just feel like we treat church as a business in some areas, right? When it comes to like, oh, money, and we have the church board, but they don't follow through. And that's where I think a lot of the times where it has like the bones, but not really all the meat, where things fall into the cracks and we are led off. Because I think that one of the things in my mind is that the church should have counseling. They should really have an approach of counseling, because that is one of our biggest missions. We're supposed to be a hospital. We're supposed to heal, meet people's needs. That's what Jesus did. How can we meet people's needs? How can we heal? Yes, of course, we have the Holy Spirit, we have the Bible, but people have real serious issues that at the most they need medication, and at the very least they need counsel. They need people who are really equipped to deal with these emotional, mental, social illnesses.
There's a lot of churches that have missed the mark and they seem to not care. And there's a lot of people who have fallen between the cracks, who don't even want anything to do with the so-called hospital, because you're not going to get treated there. You're going to stay sick.
Mm-hmm. And that's
so you're going to keep swinging. You're going to have the leadership keep lying. And that's the end of the story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that we don't look at the whole person, right? When you think about why would someone, you know, just as Jackie was saying with the gentleman who she spoke with and the people that I know who have been involved with these type of activities, I see that, you know, the common thread is that they were interested, right? They were interested, or there was a problem and they were seeking to fix or fill a void to some degree. And that is what is happening with a lot of people in the church. And if we don't address that, we are individuals and we have flaws, we have needs, and sometimes the need is not, sometimes it's due to trauma, right? And sometimes it's just human needs, right? Sometimes we just can't ignore that we are human. But what we need to realize is that we can't, a lot of times in the church, we just want to address one part of the person and not realize that the whole, in education, we like to take a holistic approach. One of the great programs that I was involved in New York City was that we don't just look at if the education is failing in the Black community, well, it's not just the teachers in the classroom. We have to look at the parents at home. We have to look at how that child is being raised. If that child is hungry, they're not paying attention in the classroom, okay? If that child's being beat, if the parent can't get a job, you know, and they're homeless, education is down the drain. That's the least of their concerns, right? So you have to look at education in a holistic approach. We have to look at the church, the people in the church, in a holistic approach. And you can't just continue to minister to one part of the person. And I don't want to put the onus on the pastor, right? Because they're people too. And sometimes we forget that. We hold them to this standard with, they're just people too, right? But as Melissa said, they are called to lead. And part of that leadership is to be able to understand the needs of the people and say, you know what, let's delegate. Let's have, why is it that we don't have, this is like nominating committee time, right? For many churches.
Oh boy.
Jackie, are you on the committee?
No, but I have.
Okay, because you that was a I'm on the committee. I know what you're talking about kind of response. But you know, and we were talking about this on another group call I had earlier. We keep doing the same thing. We have different needs. We're more educated. If church was run a certain way in past years, we can't fault them because they were operating under what they knew, what they thought was best. But we are in an age where we have information. We have no excuse to be ignorant to what people are going through, what is happening in society, and what people need. So why is it that on the nominated, why aren't there church social worker?
Yep, exactly. Mm-hmm.
We have safety. Who's the person? The safety person to make sure, you know, we have all of these. We even have church security. Who's securing our mental health? Who's securing our emotional health?
Don't forget about the wedding coordinator. Remember that?
We have a wedding coordinator, Melissa. We have a wedding coordinator. We have a lot of, why don't we have a church social worker? We have a school social worker. Why?
Yeah, exactly. But the thing behind all of that, they fight for individuals to be part of, and you know this, at least part of the children's department, to do all the children's, you know, programs, the children's choir. You have all of you want that. But this is the thing behind a lot of it. A lot of the members, you have social workers, you have counselors, you have licensed all of these people are sitting in the congregation with these license certifications and fully educated to handle these circumstances. But what happens? Oh, that's me. I'm not dealing with it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal.
Or you have a lot of the people that are in leadership and they're only going to nominate their friends or their family members. So you have a combination of the two. But needless to say, yeah, you do have a lot of favoritism going on there. And a lot of people are suffering due to the members just sitting back, not wanting to deal with it. What was the result in your relationship?
Well, the relationship didn't continue because of outside reasons. But you know, you're prayerful. That's a reason to be prayerful when you're in relationships and God reveals things to you. I won't say that it was directly related to that, but God only knows what else was going on, and it just didn't continue. But I think that I will say that, you know, I was happy that this person was able to share, and another person was able to share that with me, because, you know, you don't want to appear, first of all, you want people to show you who they are. You want people to come as they are. And you don't want to come off judgmental, because I have no heaven or hell to put anybody in. So, you know, and you want people to be able to talk and share what they've gone through. So I don't feel like that was a reason why we didn't continue in our relationship. But as I said earlier, a lot of times when people are searching and they're looking and they're trying different things that are really just not intended for us to try and be involved in, it's maybe a result of something else they're lacking, right? And that can manifest in other areas of their lives and relationships that they get involved in.
Alicia, I love how you said to make sure you know the background of someone before getting into the relationship. Do you have any other type of advice that you would share with our audience today in regards of dating, or any type of other things that you would like to share with us?
I would just say, you know, just be aware. And when I say aware and open, not open to trying, but just aware that the church is not any different than the world. Okay. And some people, I grew up in the church from like late teens onward. My family wasn't really necessarily followers or believers. So I was exposed to a lot and I was put on to a lot. But I think that, you know, as Christians, just be aware as you're dating that you can't necessarily feel safe. Oh, this person's in the church. I don't have to worry. I can put my guard down. I can, you know, just follow God, stay prayerful as you're dating, ask questions, keep your ears open, be loving, but just know that the church is not off limits. There are a lot of things happening in the church because a lot of people are in the church, and we are all varied and we are all sinners, okay? Saved by grace, hopefully.
Thank you so much, Miss Alicia. As that reminded me of what Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you their true colors, believe them.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So we thank you so much for coming on our show, Miss Alicia, and sharing your experience.
Thank you for having me. And thank you all for actually bringing these topics to the forefront and talking about them, because they're much needed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for watching The Biggie, the big elephant in the room, where we speak about the unspeakable.